Good evening, friends. Tonight, as I'm driving home, I want to talk about fear. It's a weird thing to want to talk about. It's a topic mostly we attempt to avoid. But I posed a question this morning via Twitter on kind of a thread that a friend of mine had posted at the beginning of the year about kind of what are you working on, what do you want help with, is a way to kind of showcase the positive side of online conversation. And I had kind of looked at some of the conversation that had been generated on that thread over the course of the past week or so, and decided to jump in with a question of kind of about this video making exploration that I'm on. And the first one was, how do you overcome kind of stage fright? I've mentioned a couple times that I'm kind of overcoming this weird, I think, fear that I have of being on camera. And the second question was like, what other people are making really cool videos on YouTube, or what other people are kind of using this format to create videos that I should follow along, that I should kind of pay attention to. And so his answer, he didn't answer the second question. He actually only answered the first question, but he dropped a link to a podcast where Tim Ferriss interviews Jamie Foxx. And it took nearly 3 hours to listen to the podcast today, and I'm really blessed to have been doing some work that enabled me to listen to that podcast while I was doing that work. So I was able to listen to the podcast today and got down to basically the one line that I think he wanted me to catch, which was Tim Ferriss asks Jamie Foxx, what's on the other side of fear? And the response was nothing. Pretty cool. And he gives some really interesting context about what he actually meant by that. And it was because of a conversation that I think he had been having with his daughters, that Jamie Foxx had been having with his daughters, about how irrational fear is. That like if you are afraid to do something and you do it, like at the end of the day, nothing actually different happens. Like if you're standing in the middle of a crowded place and you're afraid to stand up and just scream, if you do that, nothing actually happens. People might stop and say something, but nothing actually changes. And that's a really interesting kind of rationale for how to answer that question of what's on the other side of fear with nothing. But then what that caused me to remember is an interesting video or clip of Will Smith answering the question, what's on the other side of the fear, or on the other side of fear, with the answer bliss or pure happiness. And I rewatched that clip, which didn't take 3 hours, thankfully. It's like a 5-minute clip, and I'll put it in the description below. I'll put both links to all that stuff in the description below. But he recounts the experience of going skydiving for the first time, and his friends kind of having this conversation while they're out doing a night of drinking, like, oh, let's go skydiving tomorrow, and they all get pumped up about it, high-fiving, and he goes back to his room and he's like staring at this ceiling, terrified that he's going to go jump out of a plane. And then he wakes up in the morning and he's eating breakfast, kind of acting like, oh yeah, everything's fine, but actually being terrified inside. And they walk onto the plane and he's mortified the entire time, and all the way up, kind of obviously gives a lot of theatrics and fun to this story, but gets up to the point where he's getting ready to jump out of the plane, and they count to 1, 2, and then they push him out the plane, because on 3 people grab, so they push you out on 2. And he talks about that moment of realizing that you're past the point of fear and you're in the moment, and it being pure bliss, right? And so he gives his rationale, and I spent a little bit of time today thinking about the differences between those two answers and where I'm in kind of trying to understand where I'm at on this, short so far journey that I've been on, trying to overcome the fear of talking live on camera. And honestly, I don't even know why I'm afraid of it. Like, I don't have a problem public speaking. Have never really been nervous about that. I don't have a problem communicating generally. I love to write. I love to plan. I don't have any fear with regard to those things, but for whatever reason, being on camera or being in front of a camera has always made me really uncomfortable. And so I feel like in the current moment, I'm a little closer to Jamie Foxx's side of kind of the spectrum on nothing being on the other side of fear. But who knows what's going to end up happening? Maybe this exploration turns into me being like some kind of crazy famous Joe Rogan or Casey Neistat Twitterer or YouTuber or video maker. Probably not going to happen. Definitely not anticipating that. But what I have done now, I think about 6 times, is push the little red button on my phone. And it's something that I had spent a lot of years on social media not doing. And so I have. And it hasn't ended terribly. Nothing terrible has happened. So I think I'm a little closer to Jamie Foxx's side of the spectrum on this answer, but I would love to know where other people are. Like, how do you think about fear and what it means to overcome it? I think in a adventure setting, Will Smith's answer makes tons of sense. If you're hesitant to do something that is considered incredibly exciting and you just do it, you are able to experience that excitement that you wouldn't have otherwise experienced. But in the context of like public speaking or being afraid of talking to someone or being afraid of going to an event for the first time or applying to a job that you think you might not be qualified for, or I don't know, like in a less adventure type setting, I feel like Jamie Foxx might be onto something. The reality is the worst that can happen is you get a no answer or nobody says anything at all. And if that's the worst that can happen, being afraid of doing whatever the thing is absurd. Now, all that being said, it doesn't take away the fact that this is still really uncomfortable and I'm still trying to figure it all out. So I appreciate your grace and your kindness and all the comments and all the likes and all the views that have come in so far. But I would really love kind of some feedback and answer to that question. Like, what do you think is on the other side of fear? On that note, have a wonderful night. I'm stuck in a little bit of traffic. Left work a little later than I usually do. And I'm just enjoying the ride. So I can see the sunset in front of me. And I'm excited to get home, give my girls a hug, make some dinner. Hope you guys have a wonderful evening. And we'll talk to you soon. Peace.